You know, there are so many different factors that can go into a band developing a strong fan base. But for me, in my teenage years, there was a band that struck such a chord with me. It was like you couldn't just deny the togetherness of the people I hung out with that this band created. Going to their live shows, being surrounded by people, and it felt like you were with family because we all were there to enjoy what we were listening to and seeing on stage. Even with the lead singer whose voice most people would say is kind of standoffish and not that good, I thought it was great. It's still great. And I'm talking about the band Rancid. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. That's right. Listen, do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so right now. Absolutely hit that button. That will help me and this channel grow. That is why I'm here. I absolutely love doing this. I will say it every single time because I love it. And again, nobody in this world gets to where they get any level of success without help from somebody, something, in some form or fashion. You might do it on your own. You might not have anybody there with you as you go on that journey, but you don't get to the end goal on your own. I can't do this or get to my end goal without your help. So please, if you're not subscribed, do so right now. When it comes to the band Rancid, my first taste of them came at the age of 10. This is 1998. It was their fourth full-length studio album, Life Won't Wait. A buddy of mine had this album. Well, his older brother loved this album, but naturally, the younger brother, I'm his friend, we go snooping through his shit, and you always want to be like the older cool brother. He loved his brother, and his brother was a cool dude. Awesome skateboarder, just an all-around cool, chill dude. And we got hold of this album. For me, there was 2 tracks on this album that drew me in, and instantly I said, this band is freaking awesome. This song, 1998 off this album, is one of the coolest songs I'd ever heard at that time. It was something new, something fresh. It wasn't like what I was hearing on the radio. It was just amazing. And then their song, Cash, Culture, and Violence. Absolutely love this track by Rancid. I mean, this was a 22-track album that they released, their 4th studio album. Absolutely amazing. Again, it was released through Epitaph Records, which became synonymous with Rancid albums. It was absolutely amazing. They went hand in hand. And if you were a punk rock band and you were signed by Epitaph, that was like a badge of honor, 100%. You know, really the thing with Rancid is they may never have existed, may have, but I don't think they would have if it wasn't for the band Operation Ivy. Operation Ivy was a ska punk band from Berkeley, California, and they grinded and grinded like many other bands on the 924 Gilman Street scene. I mean, 924 Gilman is iconic. It's just encapsulated punk rock music as one of the great moments. You know, the style of music that was coming out of there is just still talked about today, as well as Operation Ivy, even though they formed in 87, broke up in 89. Operation Ivy is still a band that is talked about today. You still see Operation Ivy shirts at punk rock shows. You see posters on people's walls of Operation Ivy. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And the 924 Gilman Street scene, you know, brought acts like Green Day and the Offspring to the forefront, and we know the greatness they eventually, you know, got to. You know, my favorite band from my teenage years, AFI, they are also out of Berkeley, California, and they grinded at 924 Gilman Street as well. That can just not be understated. I mean, Operation Ivy was an amazing band. Jesse Michaels was an awesome lead singer, and still is. And reunion tours that Operation Ivy has done proved just that. But you had Tim Armstrong, you had Matt Freeman, Tim on guitar and backup vocals, Matt on bass backup vocals, and those two would eventually go on to form Rancid after the breakup of Operation Ivy. So what we're going to talk about with Rancid today is my favorite album by them, and honestly, it's that album that put them in a position to kind of tiptoe that fine line between being an amazing punk band, you know, fulfilling all their obligations to the underground scene and the fan base, and just being relevant in that scene to, I don't know, be considered one of the greatest bands that decided they didn't need the mainstream to be successful. But at the same time, they could cross over that line, and so many people could hear and love Rancid that may not have otherwise went to their shows or even been connected to that punk rock scene. And that's their 1995 album, And Out Come the Wolves. Absolutely brilliant album. But you can't just get there without recognizing their early work, which is their 1991 self-titled album. You know, it was produced by Epitaph Records, which, you know, was started by Bad Religion guitarist Brett Gurewitz. It's the most, I mean, God, it's got to be one of the most iconic labels in punk history. And there's others, but that's got to be at the tippy top of the mountain. No doubt. Epitaph Records helped Rancid get to where they were, where they are, and probably where they'll continue to go before they end up calling it quits one day, whenever that is. They can do it on their terms, and that's just how it's going to be. But, you know, when Tim and Matt got in the studio, they brought in Brett Reed to be their drummer. And most people will consider Lars Frederiksen to be completely synonymous with the band, because he absolutely is. But he wasn't there for this first album. But it didn't matter, because they still got in the studio and recorded an awesome punk rock album. Now, a great build-up to And Out Come the Wolves was their second album, 1994's Let's Go. This album would see Lars Frederiksen join the band. Now, my favorite song is off Let's Go, and it's a fan favorite, Salvation. But I remember vividly seeing the music video to Salvation on a Punk-O-Rama DVD, and that music video absolutely made me fall in love with this song. Now, it's a trendy pick, I know, but I don't give a shit. Salvation is an awesome song, and Rancid did a hell of a job on this album. Again, Epitaph Records releasing this album. Matter of fact, Let's Go actually hit number 97 on Billboard's Heat Seekers chart. Not bad for a little punk band out of the Bay Area. I mean, this is absolutely amazing, but you also got to understand, this album's release crossed over with Offspring's Smash, which was a smash for them. And not only that, they supported the Offspring on a tour for them. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. That's 924 Gilman Street absolutely sticking together. You got one band that is reaching a huge height of success with an amazing album. And that was when the Offspring pretty much kicked the door down to the mainstream. And, you know, they said, hey, we can go to the mainstream and we don't feel bad about it. And they didn't have to. They still had friends in low places. And when I say low, I don't mean they're any smaller than them, or you know what I mean. They chose to stay in that underground world, and they were content with that as far as Rancid. And Offspring was more than willing to jump into the mainstream. And they've done great at that over the years. Doesn't matter. They all started in the same spot, and they stuck together no matter what. Huge. I believe that's absolutely huge. But, again, their next album, my favorite album, is when Rancid really made themselves noticed on what they were all about. So the year after Let's Go, they released in 1995 And Out Come the Wolves. I'll tell you right now, this entire album is phenomenal. Every track on And Out Come the Wolves is awesome. It just, you go listen to the album, man. I'm sure many of you watching this, if you are, you clicked on it because you like Rancid. You know how amazing this album is. It might not be your favorite. For me, it is my favorite. But let's talk about some of the hits off this album. And I'll tell you right now, at 14 years old, this was my first time going to see Rancid live, and it was at the Vans Warped Tour. I stood there in the hot Texas sun waiting for them to hit the stage. When they finally did, the first track that they played, when they hit the opening chords, when I talk about togetherness and the family of punk rock music, the amazing feeling and the goosebumps I had through the entire set, and it started with them opening this song. And when I heard the chords, I knew what was coming, and so did everybody else. And it was such like a family affair when this song came on. Soho was one of my favorite songs when this album came out. It was one of my favorite songs to hear them perform live. And when I heard them in that moment perform that to open up their set, I had such an amazement and love for them at that moment. I was just like, I love this freaking band. I absolutely love them. You know, and some of their other big hits, Roots Radicals and Time Bomb off And Out Come the Wolves, huge hits, iconic hits to this day. Two of my favorite tracks off And Out Come the Wolves. I mean, Journey to the End of the East Bay is an amazing track. Old Friend. I mean, those are two of my favorite songs off this album. But Ruby Soho is just one of those that is iconic. Even if you're not a huge punk rock fan or a Rancid fan, there's a good chance you know Ruby Soho. In fact, I got a guy that works for me at my job. His name is Ruben. And one day I called him Ruby. And he kind of was offended by it, thought I was calling him a woman. But I explained to him the song. I had him go listen to it. Ever since then, he's been Ruby. And it's just our thing. and it's because of Ruby Soho. I mean, this is a 19-track album. A lot of punk rock albums back in the 90s, you could fill it in with tons of tracks, and most of them have. You can go look at a mainstream album, something that's hitting big, by a big record label, 12 to 14 tracks maybe at most. But a lot of punk rock albums exceeded that. I mean, and there was a reason for that, because that's what punk rock music's all about. Let's create fast-paced, cool, fun-loving songs that people can get into, jump around, maybe mosh around a little, not kill each other, even though some punk bands tend to get that way at their shows where you're actually knocking the shit out of each other. That wasn't Rancid, and it didn't need to be that way. But you made people enjoy listening to your music. And 19 tracks was just fine. Could have been 25. They would have all been great by Rancid. But I got a thing, and I bet most of you don't even know this. I didn't know this until I was about 17 years old. I had already been into Rancid for a few years. I didn't know this. Did you know that they actually played on Saturday Night Live, November 18th of 1995? SNL is so iconic. They're music guests. To be a music guest on SNL is iconic. Rancid was a music guest on SNL. And they absolutely deserve that honor. And to still be able to be considered an amazing punk band and not lose that fan base, and to do something like that, nobody but Rancid could do it. Now, I don't know if you were thinking this throughout this video, but I was thinking it as I was saying a lot of the stuff I've been saying. There's a lot of empty spaces in this video, and there's a reason for that. I had to say a little bit of kind of what led up to and Out Come the Wolves. But obviously, there's so much more in between when Operation Ivy ended until Out Came the Wolves actually was released. There's a lot of holes to be filled. And I could probably do a Rancid video that could last 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, that's how much there is to talk about with this band. But it's not about that. And Out Come the Wolves by Rancid is my favorite album by them, and it's one of their most iconic albums. Standing today, that is a platinum certified album. Most bands that get put out there in the mainstream by these huge labels never reach a platinum certified album. To reach gold is an amazing, amazing feat by any band. For a little punk rock band that just grinded in the underground for most of their career. Little punks out of the East Bay. A platinum certified album where I guarantee that was never the intention or even a goal. And it happened. That just shows you how amazing Rancid is. And with Tim Armstrong's voice, it even makes it more amazing. The guy's like a graspily old man, an old guy telling stories out at Boston Harbor, up in Massachusetts, trying to tell you how many fish he caught and about this 500-pound fish that is just lore and nobody can catch it. He's that guy sitting in the corner with a beer telling that story. And that voice is iconic in punk rock music. Tim Armstrong's amazing. Lars is amazing. Matt's amazing. Even though Brett's not still with the band, well, a hell of an amazing drummer. Rancid, man. If you don't appreciate that band, and you can't, then you're not a real music fan, man. These guys and their journey is 100% through and through punk. They did it their way, and they've continued to do it their way. And you got to appreciate and respect that. And I absolutely love it. So, I appreciate you coming out. I love talking about this. Go out there, take care of your friends, your family. Do something amazing. It doesn't have to be something to impress the masses. Do something you love. The people will come. The people will appreciate the authenticity. So go out there. Till next time, take care of yourself. I'm out.